Hello, lovely. Welcome to this mini episode of Kiteroa, the Long View podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. This is another mini episode, and we are just touching on something that I know is a very common question that I come across with regards to meditation and mindfulness, and essentially the hows and the whys behind it. And we will be going much further into some guided meditations and some of the real background behind meditation and mindfulness. But for today, I just wanted to share with you a quick kind of recap, cliff notes, quick study guide, whatever you want to call it, around meditation and the how of meditation, because that is so often what I find to be the biggest essentially barrier or block to people actually giving it a go for the first time if you've never meditated before. And it's sort of just almost like taking away the perceived difficulty of it, or the perceived notions that maybe have come up that you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, live a certain lifestyle. Meditation and mindfulness practices are quite literally for every single person, and something that I really want to empower you with is to know that it is incredibly beneficial and powerful for you to bring into your life as a daily or a regular practice. It is almost like a muscle that you have to work. It starts out a little bit challenging and only gets easier and easier the longer and more regularly we do practice it. That's why you will often hear people refer to meditation as a practice. And it has been practiced and taught for millennia, right? This is something that has been around for such a long time, and there is a complete science behind meditation and its benefits for us as human beings, and you know how it relates to our different brainwave patterns, getting us into a state that is harmonious and filled with frequency of love and joy and all of those things. So we are going to be exploring these the background essentially in future podcast episodes. But for now, as I say, I just wanted to share a little bit of the how of meditation so that you can I should say, go away from this episode feeling empowered to try it for the first time, or to reconnect back to a practice if you have tried it before and felt it didn't really fit for you in the way or the style that you were perhaps taught or guided to or shown. Because I know that so often, and it is really common, that the thing that scares people off, or that they've never tried it before, is that they just don't know how to start. They don't know what you need to do meditation, right? Or quite often people feel like they aren't, quote, little air quotation marks here, spiritual enough to meditate, for example. So let's just cover some of the basics, right, of how to meditate, what it's about. So essentially all meditation is a practice that quietens the mind. It is a process of quietening your mind, and this comes in many forms. And for different people, meditation and that process of just finding stillness within and the quiet of your mind within is going to be radically different for different people, right? So in terms of the physical how of your body when you meditate, it can come again in many forms. It could be sitting. Many of us have seen either images or watched someone demonstrate meditation, and it is in the classic sitting cross-legged, with your hands in your lap, or holding your hands in a position of a mudra, in terms of like the way your fingers are positioned. And that is very much a common meditation positioning. However, meditation can be in the form of a walking meditation. It can be literally going for a walk, can be lying down. It can be moving your body in some particular way. And as I say, then the benefits of meditation, or the way in which we connect to that stillness within, comes through in many ways as well. And no matter, what we are doing with our body, there also can be then the way that we do meditate in terms of whether that is the traditional, I guess, more commonly recognized or commonly, let's say, promoted of being in quietness, right? Of just sitting still and sitting quietly. However, I just want to kind of say, that meditation comes through everything from prayer to art to music to exercise to being out in nature, chanting, singing, right? There are so many different variations on a meditation practice, and it really is almost, when you are first starting out, it is mostly getting comfortable with trying a few different things to see what works for you. And this is often what I do within my work, guiding other soulpreneur women through their journey with understanding their soul blueprint, their human design, their astrology, things like that, is that we work with those modalities to understand, or get clarity on, I should say, what might potentially work best for them in terms of modalities such as the type of meditation that works for them, because we all are unique in the sense of the way our brains work, the way our minds are programmed, in terms of our physical, energetic body, our aura. And these can kind of go into playing a part. But, if you didn't know any of that, essentially, I just encourage you to experiment with something that works for you. And, I know so many people who their form of meditation is going for a walk in nature every day, right? Like not having music in their ears, just literally putting on their shoes, going for a half-hour walk, being surrounded by nature, being mindful, of their surroundings the whole time, taking the time to look at the smallest details of the ferns and the leaves and listening to the noises and listening out for birds. And, or if it's by the ocean, for example, that process of simply walking along a beach and picking up shells and stones along the way and marveling at each individual one and seeing all the intricacies of that creation, right? That is meditation. And that is quite simply a meditative practice and process. So if you are someone who finds the idea of sitting cross-legged on the floor in total silence to be really not that inspiring, then you're not alone, because there are quite literally millions of other people who practice their meditation in a way that is active, in a way that is through creative genius, in a way that is through, as I say, something that is artistic or musical or using their voice, right? So some simple ways to actually meditate for the first time, to do a meditation if you've never before, to get you started, or just to give you the confidence to start out for the first time, is that, as I said before, knowing it is a practice, knowing it is something that might take a few times to find something that feels comfortable for you. And really, my best advice when you're starting out is to go easy on yourself, right? To allow yourself kind of the ups and downs with it. I have been meditating daily for a long time, and I still have a very busy mind that needs to be given kind of the free rein and the license to get distracted, to go off into all sorts of different thoughts and things. And then it's just that practice of coming back to center, coming back. I remember years ago reading a book by Sarah Wilson called First We Make the Beast Beautiful, and it's a beautiful book all about anxiety and learning to cultivate our mindset for happiness and to essentially live with what we have within us, and to find that space of self-compassion. And she speaks a lot in that book about how her form of meditation is getting out into nature and going hiking, and she takes herself off on big weekend hikes and adventures, and has done so all over the world throughout her travels. And she talked about how quite often she will find a spot just underneath a tree or, on a beautiful, overlooking a beautiful vista at the top of whatever hike or track or trail that she's walked, and she'll just sit and then take that time to get really still within, and that's when her meditation practice often feels the most beneficial, after she's moved her body, she's moved all of that kind of energy through in a physical exercise way, and then to sit still for, or to lie there just connecting to Mother Nature and enjoying the sounds and the smells and the textures of the natural environment around. And that process of, if your mind is really busy, and again, particularly, if you are someone who naturally experiences things like anxiety, or has a mind that tends to race, or a mind that tends to run away with, lots of thoughts. In the previous episode, we talked about how that process of staying in the now rather than either ruminating on the past or future tripping and getting caught up in the what ifs of the future. This is all connected to it. So, and in that practice, Sarah Wilson talked about, and I really loved the way she described it, which was that, when we have those busy thoughts or busy mind moments, we can think of every thought that comes in as a bubble. And you can allow that bubble to just drift up, and it can, while it is formed in the shape of a bubble, it can be a formed thought, but essentially you are just allowing that bubble to rise and then pop and evaporate. And that is the kind of a really beautiful, simple description of how to get started with meditation. Because yes, especially when you first start out, your mind is busy, right? And this is exactly why it is so powerful and so beneficial, because of the fact that our human brains are very busy places, and if we've never actively cultivated quietness or stillness within us before, it can be a bit of a wrestling match to get to the point where your mind suddenly realizes, oh, I don't have to keep coming up with all of these different thoughts. I don't have to keep going over that same thing again. I don't have to keep worrying about what's going to happen later this afternoon with X, Y, and Z duty that I have to go and do, or whatever the case may be. So it's allowing everything that comes in to pass and continue on its way. You don't have to hold on to it. You don't have to lock onto it. Imagine it's a bubble rising and then just popping gently and evaporating off. And then the more and more you do that and cultivate that, it comes to that, eventually that place of stillness where you can just be. And you can just be within yourself, and you can just be with the sounds that are around you, and really just allow for that inner place of quiet and peace. And one of the best and easiest practices to first start out with is simply counting and breathing. And I know that might sound really strange to start off with, because you might be thinking, well, of course I know about breathing. I don't need to count while I breathe. But that, I find, is one of the most gentle and simplistic ways to start meditating. And all you need to do to start with is say, practice for 2 minutes. If you've never meditated before, anywhere, anytime, as I say, you can be sitting in your chair, you could be lying down on the floor or on the bed or on the couch, if lying down feels good, because that often helps us to get out of that state of hustling and constant activity. It can really calm our nervous system to lie down if we're really in a heightened emotional state. But simply sitting or again going for a walk and starting out with 2 minutes, just set yourself that sort of target, whether it's a little timer on your phone, whether it's just that you're kind of guessing, roughly how long that amount of time might be or feels like it might be. And just wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can then just simply close your eyes. I like to just lay my hands, somewhere comfortable, preferably with my palms facing upwards. So whether that's sitting with them in your lap, if you're sitting in a chair, or sitting cross-legged, if you're lying down, just to sort of lie with your hands easily at your side. And it really is just dropping the eyes closed, and then just slow breaths. and counting while you do so. I like to try and do a counting practice that is in series of 4s. So I like to start out by counting, doing an inhale in that is very slow and gentle, nothing forced, and counting just slowly to 4. So a really good example would be, to inhale and count 2, 3, 4. And that's all you need to do. And you can then decide if it feels comfortable. You might want to just hold that breath for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4, and then you can release and exhale 2, 3, 4, and then similarly again, if it feels good to you, you can then pause and hold for another count of 4. And you can just repeat that process over and over as many times as you need. You might intentionally slow that pace as you become more and more comfortable with this practice. Again, as I say, the bubbles of thoughts are going to come in and out as you get into your rhythm with that counting and that breathing process. For some people, it really helps to visualize something as well while that process is going on. So with that process of inhaling for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, exhaling for a count of 4, and then holding again for a count of 4, a visual that I often guide people through with a meditation is to imagine that you are drawing a square or a box with each of those sequences. So, that each count of 4 is the side of a square or a box. And you will often hear people refer to this as box breathing in some meditation practices. And that can really help as well if you find that your mind is particularly comfortable with visualization. For some people that isn't necessarily helping the situation. So as I say, it really is just a matter of giving it a try, giving it a practice, just seeing how it feels. 2 minutes is all it takes to start with, and you can either stay at that 2 minute and just bring that in several times a day. It's something that, as I say, you can do, whether that is in your car before you get out to go to that meeting, whether it is as you make a cuppa and you're waiting for the jug to boil in the kitchen, whether that is as your kids are playing and they're constantly calling your name, that you could just do that. You might not want to close your eyes if you're watching the kids, but you could do the breathing practice, and you could even involve your kids, right? Like, I think sometimes we forget that actually these practices, things like meditation, start them young, because if we, anyone can do it, and kids especially can often be really, really can experience really, really beneficial aspects from practicing some of these things. And their version of meditation might just look like a minute. It might look like collecting stones on the beach, giving them something to focus in on, things like that. There are going to be a multitude of different ways that you can experiment with this, bring it in, practice it throughout the day. And I really just want you to encourage you to really use this anywhere and anytime. Meditation is it's been so life-changing for me, and I know many, many people who feel the same way. It's not something you have to be doing, dressed in your yoga clothes. It's not something you have to be doing only if you've been on a spiritual Buddhist path for years. It is something that crosses the complete transect of cultures and society and religion and spiritual practices, and it really is a powerful, powerful thing to just bring in as part of your day-to-day life, and to add to your toolkit of how to cultivate that inner peace and happiness. So I hope that this has been a powerful little mini episode. It's given you some food for thought. As I say, these are just little mind food episodes to essentially get started on this journey with this new podcast space. And I would love to hear if you have ever meditated before, if you are brand new to meditation, what your style of meditation is. If you do have a current practice, come and let us know. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram. And I hope that this has given you a little bit of a nudge to give it a try if you have never meditated before. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being here.